Okay. Hi, everyone. I just want to introduce you to two ideas that can be added to your write up of the scientific method. Once you get the idea of the six main steps of the scientific method, then you might want to do a series of experiments. And the series of experiments will help you understand how does one thing change the outcome of the experiment. You want to keep everything the same as much as possible and then change just one thing. And that one thing is called a variable. So that's one more little part you can add to your write-up if you're doing more than one experiment, if you're doing a series of experiments about the same thing. So here, just for the most basic example I could think of, is a paper airplane experiment. We'll do two different versions of an experiment, but in each case, we're going to have a variable. In the first case, it'll be a variable of weight. A large paper clip attached to our plane, a medium or a small paper clip attached to the plane, and no paper clip attached to the plane. Now, Davy, our official airplane maker, made them as much as possible, exactly to a T, the same paper airplane. So at the end of the experiment, I'll introduce you to this idea called control of error. But for now, we have the variable in this experiment is weight. Okay, I'm going to stand at the exact same spot on the floor and throw three paper airplanes. First, the paper airplane with the heaviest weight on the nose. And the reason I have a rubber band around my arm is I'm trying to make every throw exactly the same strength. So I'm going to throw just to the limit of the rubber band each time. Okay. You pause it. Now the plane with the small paper clip, medium weight. And now the plane with no paper clip, so the lightweight plane. Okay, so you can't see it here, but it's 12 feet to the beginning point of the tape measure. And the total distances were 13 feet 3 inches for the heaviest weight, the large paper clip, 18 feet 4 inches for the small paper clip, the medium weight, and 21 feet 8 inches for the lightest plane with no paper clip. So, okay, we can pause it. Okay, so I purposely did not give you my hypothesis before the first one because I wanted to see how your hypothesis compared with these results. So, but now you might say, but Mr. Gleason, those weren't exactly the same plane. And I say, right. Our plane maker did try his very hardest to make exactly the same plane 3 times. But that is what's called an error, a necessary error. Every science experiment has necessary errors. So there's something that if you're getting to be an older scientist, you might want to reflect on your experiment and say, where were the necessary errors in my experiment? And one, for example, is, to write that down, to write where you think there was necessary error, it's called control of error. So you can write control of error, 3 planes were not perfectly the same. All right. So this is a brand new experiment. And in this one, you don't have to worry about that control of error because I'm going to use the exact same plane for all 3 experiments. And I'm not going to tell you my question, but I think you know what my question is. And I'm not going to tell you my hypothesis again because I want you to write down what your hypothesis is once you know. In this experiment, I will throw the plane with no flaps. Then I will bend the flaps upward along these lines. And then the third flight, I will bend these flaps downward along these lines. And we'll compare the distances of each flight. And again, I'll use this limitation on my throw, so I try to have the exact same throw for each turn. But you might consider this in your control of error. So what is the variable in this experiment? We already know, actually, that this first flight went 18 feet 4 inches. So this second flight, I'm going to bend along the flaps upward. Beyond our 12-foot marker, this one measures 1 foot 11 inches. So that's a total of 13 feet 11 inches. Now moving on to the third step of the second experiment, we have flaps down, and we'll see how far it flies with the same strength of throw. Okay. That plane didn't even clear our 12-foot marker, so we had to measure backwards from that marker, and it's almost a full 3 feet short of that 12-foot marker. So it is 9 feet 1 inch. You notice it even turned upside down. So come over here and you'll see that 9 feet 11 inches is by far our worst or shortest flight. 13 feet 11 inches with the flaps up is our medium flight. And again, just as in the no paperclip flight, the no flap flight was the longest flight. So that simple paper airplane, well, actually, I shouldn't draw your conclusion for you. You can be the one to judge about the simple paper airplane versus the weighted plane or the plane with flaps. All right. And that is called a second experiment using the variable of flaps, and the control of error is up for you to decide, but it was not a different plane each time, same plane every time. So you decide what was the variable, what was the control of error, what was the question, and don't forget to write down what your hypothesis was. All right.